This is Akashvani. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on Vocal for Local, boosting the economic growth of the country. The participants are Anil Padmanabhan, Economic Analyst, and Gouran Dhawan, Anchor.
Prime Minister's call for vocal for local has been quite clarion in many ways, and even in Mann Ki Baat yesterday he spoke and was very articulate about the need for us to get vocal about local in many other areas of our lives too. In fact, the Vocal for Local campaign urges Indians to actually buy more and more and support indigenous products, fostering economic growth and self-reliance. The initiative encourages citizens to prioritize and promote locally made goods, empowering domestic industries. We are delighted to have with us Anil Padmanabhan, senior journalist and economic analyst, who will be sharing his thoughts on Vocal for Local and the link to Viksit Bharat. Anil, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Gaurav.
You have a very interesting take, Anil, on Vocal for Local and the link to Viksit Bharat. And yes, one is a sankalp of Viksit Bharat and one is a clarion call or a slogan, so to say. But both are interlinked. So how do you see the linkages in these two?
See, Gaurav, I'll begin with the PM's reference, the context that he talked about, Vocal for Local. He talked about it in the context of weddings. We are aware that many of us go abroad for destination weddings, spend millions. So he said that, why do you want to do that? You can do it at probably, nth the cost of that in excellent facilities at home. At the same time, you'll create local employment, local opportunities. Now, if you take that analogy, extend it to other sectors, because this is how common person can understand the significance of Make in India or Vocal for Local. So if you look at prior to say 2015 or 2017, which is when this clarion call was made, is that India would spend a lot of, even if you produce something here, the import components were very high. So that is where the idea of the PLI scheme was introduced, So in the PLI scheme, they incentivized companies to produce here, basically giving them a 30% subsidy, which took care of the lack of productivity in the Indian economy, which was primarily due to a lot of legacy deficits of bad roads, high interest rates, no proper electricity connections, etc. So which impaired the productivity of an Indian unit. So this was to compensate that for a short term, and it was designed with that idea, and it was initially started with 14 industries. And that is how this whole Vocal for Local assumed a national strategy within a policy framework, like I gave you of PLI, but it started extending to other sectors and other commodities too, which we can dwell on as we go along.
Right. So you earlier spoke about, the wedding business and having ripple effect. And is similarly for Vocal for Local, there is the environment. It's more environment friendly because it's local. There are jobs created. Standard of living would improve because I think the context of the product is made within the context of the country. So more eco-friendly and more life-friendly. What are some critical areas where we have made progress on this?
Gaurav, one very obvious one is cell phones, which has been the most successful PLI. At another level, which is a much longer project, which is not necessarily from PLI, is the Tejas aircraft, which again is in the news because the PM took a flight in it on Saturday. Now, this project was started in 2001 and it went through various gyrations, and then finally it was taken up with earnestness in 2016 and it was inducted into the Indian Air Force. And today, it's the first Make in India light combat aircraft which can hold its own anywhere in the world. So India almost won an export order with Malaysia but got pipped at the post. They were there at the Dubai Air Show where they have again received queries from various countries, including Philippines and some from the Middle East area. So hopefully sooner or later they will strike an export order. But regardless of that, it is now rapidly becoming a mainstay of India's Air Force, especially since most of the fleet is aging and has to be retired. The upside of all this, whether it's Tejas or whether it's phones, is the strategic capability that India is acquiring. So if you look back at the Russia-Ukraine war, what happened? Two commodities got hit very severely. Oil, because Russia was knocked out of the market, and wheat, because both Russia and Ukraine were impacted. Global prices soared, which is part of the reason why global inflation soared. India was secured because on the wheat side, India doesn't need to import. And on oil side, we struck deals with Russia and managed to keep the oil price domestically low and internationally low by re-exporting it.
Right.
Now, that is the kind of advantage. I mean, that shows you the strategic need for creating domestic capability like Vocal for Local or Make in India or a PLI scheme, which cannot be ignored in today's world where we can rarely distinguish between friend and foe. And you live in very uncertain times, the geopolitical reset underway. So acquiring such capability is not a choice but an imperative.
Right. So, Anil, when we talk of actually being considered an economic power or a producing power, so to say, the products we make need to be competitive with respect to global standards and with other brands. Do you think we have made progress in that area too?
Gouran, yes and no. It's a very slow progress because, yes, in some products, like on the pharma side, the COVID-19 vaccine was as good as any other vaccine that was produced anywhere else in the world. Tejas aircraft, I just gave you an example. It's an excellent fighter aircraft, hold its own in its own category. But there are most areas, India is still way behind the curve. Because in many ways, that's why I mentioned earlier on legacy deficits. So India has spent most of the last 75 years trying to fix legacy deficits, whether it's banking, whether it is education, whether it is drinking water, whether it is cooking gas, whether it's housing. Just to give you a few statistics, in 2010, 410 million people did not have a bank account. Today, all of them have a bank account.
Right.
In 15 years, ending 22, India has lifted 400 million people out of poverty. Of course, these stats may have changed post-COVID, but you can't deny the fact that such a massive number of people have been lifted out of poverty. These are where India has always been absorbed in addressing legacy deficits and has never focused on world-class products, barring in some sectors, like we mentioned. That will get fixed, but it won't happen overnight. For that, you need a mindset reset too. We as consumers have to start putting a tougher bar, which we are increasingly doing on the products we buy. In B2B, same level of scrutiny should be exercised. So it's a gradual process. But more and more people will realize that good quality products are a reason why they're priced that high. Because there's longevity, there's assurance, there's no malfunction. So there is a certain advantage that goes with it, which is often ignored when we all pursue profits and pricing.
Right. And also I think incomes are rising, and the group which is actually getting more disposable income, which is now looking more at, quality, I think that is also increasing the numbers, the absolute numbers. So you're right, we're all in it together and we need to push for higher quality. And I think, Anil, that's a well-made point. Wanting to now come to understanding jobs, its link to the SME sector, and what Vocal and Local will do for the SME sector.
It'll be huge, Gaurav, because the SME sector is the most underrated and undervalued sector everywhere in the world, particularly in India. And quality is also a huge challenge at the SME level. But not to justify them, but you can't really blame them too, because the circumstances that they operate in are terrible. The cost of credit for them is if a normal company goes out and gets working capital loan at 10 to 14%, the SMEs will never get anything less than 25 to 30%. How can you operate with those kind of cost of borrowing? Solving the credit problem is the primary challenge, which the good news is that new frameworks are coming up, like the account aggregator framework, which basically is leveraging a SME's cash flow records as opposed to the asset base they have. So normally in banking, if an SME applied for a loan, they would be asked to produce collateral, which is very difficult to come by. But if they were to access their cash flows, they were doing regular business, but the point is they want to raise to the next level. So they are not a delinquent situation at all. But if you look at the asset base, that won't come through. But if I look at the cash flow basis, that comes through, that they are a good prospect for lending. And which is why the account aggregator framework enables that, because it enables access of data. So it is the first time where India's data is individual entities' data is being monetized for their advantage. So handling credit would be the primary way of addressing it. Second, the market is, once they ensure quality, will find its own legs in a very competitive market. And once they do this, they're very employment friendly. So it'll create a multiplier impact.
Right. Now wanting to draw your attention, Anil, back to, Viksit Bharat, and which talks about raising awareness and to facilitate the delivery of welfare scheme benefits from sanitation to financial services, electricity, housing. So basically a lot about raising awareness about, what India can really produce, where we are going and where have we come from. I think encapsulating all that. And over here on the other side, when we talk of awareness for vocal for local. And you did mention at the beginning of the program that both these are interlinked. Do you think there's enough visibility and awareness of what are the local products? How can people help? Because public participation is critical to this.
Gaurav, yes and no, because yes, they're far more visible today than they were maybe 10 years ago. But it's a work in progress. Again, there are new platforms, new avenues. The growth of e-commerce has opened all our eyes to products which we would never have known otherwise. And now you have the ONDC project, which is looking to revolutionize e-commerce, just like the UPI did to the business of payments.
Okay.
So same way, ONDC is looking to do that with e-commerce, which means, you will begin to see products which you had not seen before. The local people will have equal chance of showcasing their product on a platform using ONDC as opposed to the existing e-commerce platform, which is often controlled by the platform owner. So this is a democratization of platforms which ONDC is attempting. So it will happen gradually, but cannot happen overnight. And like I said, it's a work in progress.
Right. In fact, UPI is a great local product and we're all, not only using it across the world, it is garnering a lot of accolades and with other countries wanting to see how they can also bring this into their system.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, if you recall, when the G20 concluded in Delhi, one of the declarations was to take the Indian digital public infrastructure model to the world. Basically, what India did is that it unpacked the entire model of digital infrastructure. Products of that are UPI, we talked about NDC, account aggregator. There are many such products which are coming up. So yes, gradually and steadily, India's products are beginning to get a kind of recognition worldwide. And in that, DPI is right up there, or the digital public infrastructure.
Okay. So what in your experience are some areas where, we have a lot of headspace to grow and which could be actually the future for taking vocal for local global?
Gouran, India is a case where everything has scope to grow because like I explained to you, for most of our 7 decades, we have spent solving for developing country challenges.
Right.
So it is only now that, you're looking at saturation in electricity, saturation in banking, hopefully soon saturation in drinking water. So once these basic needs are resolved, then you look to the next stage. And that is where India has slowly entered. Several sectors have already entered. India is a case of multiple speeds. So you mistake to look at India as one homogeneous entity.
Absolutely.
So everything happens here at the same time. So there are sectors going very fast, some which are not growing so fast. So it will take a while, but eventually they'll all come together. But immediately we have spelled out several examples. I would add space, which is rapidly emerging, where India has got more than a foot in the door. But right now it's in satellite capabilities. But the bigger market is in the value-added segments, which segues with information technology, where India has got proven capability. So that would be one big sector. The other is the green transitions that are coming upon the entire world. So India has taken a start on solar, better late than never. It has created the International Solar Alliance, through which products can be taken to even developing countries, the global south as we call, to make them also part of this transition. So the green economy is going to create phenomenal amount of opportunity. And that is where I see India increasingly making its mark, because one good thing that ISRO showed the world and to us is, there's value for your money. ISRO launches rockets and satellites at, 1/20th the cost of what NASA would do. And that showed that it's not all about money, it's also about capability. The other thing that ISRO showed us, which we should never forget, is that a world-class product gets its own market on quality. The quality they never compromised, and that's exactly why ISRO is a world beater today.
So well said. So a lot to look forward to. Anil Padmanabhan, thank you so much for joining us on our program today.
Thank you so much.
You were listening to a discussion on Vocal for Local, boosting the economic growth of the country. The participants were Anil Padmanabhan, Economic Analyst, and Gouran Dhawan, Anchor. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsttalks@gmail.com